Hi guys, welcome back to our channel, hashtag Amputee, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about my relationship with reality, how I needed to learn to cope with my amputation and dysfunctional ways that I did that in, and 6 things that I found that changed my life forever, and why with confidence I can tell you that losing my leg, having an amputation done, is the best thing that's ever happened to me. Okay, so although amputation and the subsequent disability is a complex issue and everybody has the unique journey, I think it's really important to acknowledge that, so that my solutions might or will possibly not work for you. I do think that there's a lot of commonality, and I truly believe that when we take the 6 issues that I'll mention today, it can definitely make a difference, and most certainly believe that it will contribute to potentially you improving your quality of life and your relationship with yourself and those outside of you, and those that we live with, our friends, our family, whoever's in your life. Okay, so 6 points. The first thing I'm going to talk about is my relationship with reality, and something that I refer to, or is often referred to as our human condition, which is quite simply that my will for the world or the way I'd like things to work out is quite often in conflict with the way reality functions, or what reality gives us. And I've found that what we tend to do is, what I've seen in the work that I do as a counselor or as somebody that works with disabilities, is that we tend to respond to realities and difficulties in one of 3 ways. The first is we externalize, we blame, which is to say that I will find external reasons to try and explain why I am today, why I'm an amputee. What that would sound like is something like it's his fault, it's her fault, it's their fault, it's not my fault. So trying to externalize blame somewhere else for the situation that I'm in. Of course, the minute I do that, I completely hand over my power and my control over my situation to an external situation. That is to say, I become a hostage to reality, which renders me completely powerless. The second thing people often do is that they take on way too much blame. So they would suggest that everything I've done to this point in my life has led to me being an amputee today. It's my fault. Blame themselves for whatever's happened. And often, of course, being an amputee has got nothing to do with something that I had done. It could be that somebody's negligent actions has led to me being an amputee today. Maybe it was negligence in the hospital, which often happens. It might have been a car accident, or many other things. In my instance, what happened was I flew paragliders and I had an accident, and I knew fully well what I was going to do, and I deemed myself to be incredibly fortunate not to be in a wheelchair or to be dead. But nonetheless, I had to learn that I couldn't take on too much blame onto myself and be angry or resent myself for the rest of my life for choices that I had made. The third thing, which is also something that I did, is that we tend to run away from our problems. This, of course, is not just true for being an amputee, it's true for many aspects of our life. And I think if we can practice what I'm talking about in other aspects of our lives too, it could be hugely beneficial for the way that we live with reality. So what that might look like was to run is not necessarily, but can also be to physically run away from what's going on in my life. Some people leave their marriages, or they literally run away, they move, maybe with the idea that if I do a geographical, if I move away from where I live and I go somewhere else, my life might improve and I might leave my problems behind. Many other people might get stuck in addictions or self-destructive behaviors, such as alcohol abuse or substance abuse. And something that did happen to me is that because of the pain, the phantom pain I had early on, and also just pain from the accident and the amputation, I was abusing opiates. And of course, what opiates does is it takes us out of life. It completely separated me from reality, and I kind of lived in a haze of what was going on. And ultimately that led to a very self-destructive space, which truly forced me to confront my life, to confront realities and my situation. So I often refer to the gift of my disability, the gift of my amputation, which is that having had an accident and losing a limb created a huge crisis in my life, and I was forced to confront my realities and the problems that I experienced, not only in my disability but in many other aspects, with my history, how I grew up, with the work that I was doing at the time. But I found that to be quite a blessing, that I had to confront my problems or live a very dysfunctional and unhappy life. So just to recap, one of 3 words: I blame, I externalize, it's your fault; I internalize too much, it's my fault; or I run by doing substances or literally running away from my situation. In other words, on point 1, what I want to say is when I develop a healthy relationship with reality and I come to interact in a way where I don't do one of those 3 things and I embrace my truths and embrace everything that's going on in my life, I can truly take control of my life. And I found that was the days that my life really started. Okay, the second thing I needed to do is to start taking better care of my health, to stay in the best possible physical and emotional mental health situation that I could possibly be in. But I'm referring in particular to my physical health. So we have this disability now, we have restricted movement, and we have to remember that as we get older, it'll become increasingly difficult to move around with a prosthetic leg. And it would be so important to retain upper body strength, to retain my strength in the limbs that I have not lost. In my instance, that I would have to take care of my other leg, which would mean that I have to be careful about what I do, which activities I engage, for fear of breaking my leg or ripping ligaments, which of course would render me, which of course would seriously impact my mobility, in the sense I would be tied to a wheelchair, or even worse, to a bed. So in terms of my health, my physical health is to remain fit, not to be a fitness fanatic, but to remain fairly fit, and I do that, for instance, by swimming, by rowing, going for walks, and I find that learning to hike again with a different prosthetic leg is most likely one of the most rewarding things I could do, because I could share time with others, and it's also quite meditative, so good for my psychological, my spiritual, my emotional well-being. The third lesson that I learned is that I should purchase or buy or get myself out with the best possible prosthetics that I could find. You know, it occurred to me that I've seen people with disabilities, with amputations, in particular leg amputation I'm talking about now, who would drive a car with a lot of money, yet think it's okay to invest in inferior prosthetics, which doesn't really make sense if you think about it. My car, while it might be fun to drive a nice car, it certainly does not contribute to my quality of life. So one of the most important aspects of my being is to have decent prosthetics. So my suggestion is budget for prosthetic leg, and I've said this in a video before, add another 50% or more, and go all out and get the best possible prosthetics that you can afford to maximize your mobility. And I think that is crucial for our emotional well-being. The fourth thing that I learned is that it was hugely helpful for me to learn to ask for help, and I did so by reaching out to communities, people that struggle with their disabilities. I was highly reluctant to do that in the beginning, and that was because I couldn't shift my identity from being a fully able person or a fully or somebody with all my limbs. I didn't want to associate myself with people like myself, which is crazy when you think about it. And that crucial shift in my identity needed to happen, whereby I could embrace that my realities have changed, and that people like me would be able to help me, that maybe other amputees could tell me a thing or two about what it was like to live with a disability. And I think we can find help in many different platforms. It could be from a professional, it could be from support groups, having a chat with 2 or 3 or more people at the same time. There are many groups all over the world that do that. Amputees USA have a brilliant Facebook page, as well as many good ones in the country where I live in South Africa. I find it quite useful to interact with social media such as this, maybe Facebook and other platforms. And I find, and this brings me to a very important point, that when I share my story with you guys, it makes my understanding of disability better. I feel that if I can pass on something, it gives meaning to what happened to me. When I can pass on something that I've learned, as I feel I'm doing at the moment, to others who struggle with disability, it gives meaning to the suffering that we experience in our amputation or in our disability. The fifth thing that I learned is that I needed to acquire new hobbies, that I had to find new things to do that would fit in with my limited mobility. So for me, being a leg amputee, things like rowing, things like swimming, which I used to do a bit of anyway, became very important to me, to be able to get out into nature. I also found that what I'm doing at the moment, which is to take a camera and start walking around, or to do the vlogs that I do, produce these videos that we do, is something that I could do with ease given my disability. So there are many hobbies out there. Maybe it's reading, maybe it's studying, maybe it's some process of learning, something that I found in my photography and filmmaking, which is hugely fulfilling and really helped me to reshape my identity and give me something to look forward to, and also to an extent provide meaning in my life. And then the sixth aspect, and our last aspect that I think is really important, is to find inspiration, is to look around us at the people that we see that have done well with their disabilities and use their disabilities to improve their quality of life. It doesn't have to be an Olympian, although they do inspire me. And I've recently met some amazing people, some para-athletes, Paralympians, that have really inspired me over time to engage other activities, physical activities for instance. But I think the minute we start aspiring to be a superhuman, although I like to call us superhumans, but that is not to say that I need to be a Paralympian myself. I think that's setting myself up for something that I cannot do, which could quite easily lead to disappointments. For me, my inspiration didn't necessarily come from the Olympians. It came from a lot of people like you and I that haven't particularly been out there running the 100 meters in a specific time, or jumped the highest, or swum the farthest, but from people that have found balance in their lives, and as I stated right in the beginning, that have learned to interact with reality in a functional way. So people like you guys that are listening to me at the moment, like people in the support groups that I interact with, like people that come and see me, that come and see me for counseling services, that truly, really inspire me. I want to give you an example of something that has truly inspired me and that I've discovered quite recently, and it's somebody that does discussions and talks on photography on YouTube. It's this man called Sean Tucker, and he originates from South Africa, but he lives in the UK now, and he talks about photography and filmmaking, but he often equates it to life and life experiences. And I would urge you, I'll link it in the description below, to go and listen to what Sean has to say about photography and filmmaking, and how he uses it as a metaphor for how we can live and how to approach aspects of our lives differently. Okay guys, to end off with, I think that I've truly experienced that when all these 6 aspects of life, when we engage them in a different way, and in particular the first one, which is my relationship with reality, when they all come together, my life improved immensely. Which brings me back to the statement which I made right in the beginning, is that my disability is a blessing, that losing my leg has improved my life immensely, and it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. So thank you for joining me today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. If you enjoyed what I had to say, please hit that like button. And if you have anything to comment on what has been discussed today, if you have your story to share, even if it's 1 or 2 lines, please put it in the comments below, and hopefully we and I can learn something from your experience with your disability. Okay guys, until next time, ciao.